Watch You Seek, the forum that Russian watch experts make time for.
Greetings, fellow watch comrades, and welcome to what will be one in a series of segments that'll be educational and hopefully informative about Russian watches and their component parts. The disembodied voice you're hearing is that of Craig Hester. I'm the watch comrade. And overwhelmingly on our poll on Russia2all.com, that's RUSSIA, the number 2, ALL.com, folks asked us to give a little more education on movements. So I decided today we're going to start with something pretty straightforward, 2 Vostok movements. These are movements built by the Vostok company in Chistopol, Russia, as you know is the oldest and largest continuously operating Russian watch manufacturer in Chistopol, Russia. They make both these movements, but the difference here is the movement here is used for Vostok, the basic Vostok watches, the Komandirsky, the Amphibia, the basic Vostok watches that you see, all over the place, that for prices varying anywhere from, sometimes as low as $30 to, maybe as high as $60. The basic standard, really produced for many, many years, arguably even you'd say mass-produced, Vostok watches. This is the 2416 movement, the workhorse from those watches. Now, its counterpart over here, the 2432, which is the one I just happened to pick for this. It's not necessarily because it's an apples to apples to the 2416, but this is an optimized, additional complications, decorated movement for Vostok Europe. And these decorations and everything done to optimize and specialize this movement, and also it is an improved movement. This is a higher quality movement than the 2416, are done specifically for Vostok Europe. Now, of course, you can tell clearly that these 2 watches come from the same base. You look at the bridges, the wheels, the balance wheel, and look at that balance wheel go on the 2432. I love the fact that I ripped this out of a watch and it's been sitting around exposed and it's still humming along beautifully like that. When you look at the, here's your shock resistor right here. You can look at that and you compare it to the one on the Vostok. Now I don't know how clear that's going to be in this small world that we're looking at here, but you can see that these are clearly the same base. Now, what makes them different? Well, different. First of all, as I said, this is a higher quality movement. Just one quick thing that separates the quality between these movements is the 2416 publishes and allows for a -20 loss per day and up to a 60-second gain per day as an acceptable rate of gain or loss, whereas the 2432 publishes only an acceptable rate of -10 seconds per day or +30 seconds per day. Only a better regulated and better optimized movement could do that. Obviously, you've got the blued screws, you have several different things that are going on here, adding decoration and improvement to the movement in comparison. Also, the 2416 only has a date complication. This is a very simple, straightforward movement. You see the date wheel there. And for those of you who haven't really had much opportunity to see exposed movements out of a watch, which unless you're somebody who really tinkers or you've been around when your watchmaker was working on them, you don't get to see this side of the movement very often. You can see the date wheel there. It's a pretty straightforward, simple deal. Whereas the 2432 has the day-night indicator, and that is a disc in the center. This watch also has the complication of adding a GMT dial. Okay, and then it does have the date wheel on the outside. So now to put this in where you're more used to seeing it, to give it more relevance, here it is on the dial. And you can see where those component pieces are. The 24-hour, the day-night, and the date. Those complications are added by Vostok Europe, by Vostok, for Vostok Europe, for this movement. Okay, now, a couple of other things. Look at the rotors, and those of you who haven't seen a rotor maybe separately off. This has got the Geneva waves. You have the additional color. You have the fact that you've got the black plating on this. Adds complication and beauty to the movement. Whereas the Vostok is more simple. That's obviously the Russian B, which is how it starts in Russian, as opposed to the V we commonly see in the translation. So this Now, I do like how they did the cutout or the punch out of the B here on the Vostok, and especially since Vostok watches rarely have an exhibition case back. That is kind of a nice little feature they're hiding away there in their watch. But nevertheless, obviously, you've got a higher decoration here. Both of these movements do work on a 19,800 vibrations per hour, and that's the speed at which you know, the balance wheel rotates, which is how the regulation of the movement and its timekeeping is set. You know, other than that, they have basically, well, this one's 32 joules as opposed to 31 on the 2416, which really doesn't have a quality importance. It's one of those myths, actually, that the number of joules in a movement, the more there are, the better the movement is. It really doesn't matter. Joules in a movement are, their purpose is to provide a the lubrication between the moving parts of the movement. You need as many or as few joules for a movement as are required for it to work properly. The reason there's an additional joule in the 2432 versus the 2416 is really because it does have those additional complications of the 24-hour wheel and the day-night indicator. I thought I would show you some of the other, well, first of all, here's the movement with the rotor on. Obviously, this is the part, and there you go, you got that balance wheel just cooking away. This is the part that as you move your wrist, it rotates and it winds the watch. And if you consistently wear the watch, you shouldn't have to wind it. And again, there it is. This is the Arctica dial. And if you want to see the dial stripped down, that's what it looks like, guys. Pretty wild, huh? To just see the component parts broken out like that. I love the decoration on this dial. The Arctic is just such a great watch. In comparison, the simplicity that is the Kommandersky. With the tank, only the date window, the real simple Superluminova on it. Show you some case work. Let's see, here's the Arctica case. See it open. Obviously you've got the, you know, this shows you where it's the surgical grade stainless steel. I just think that's a beautiful case on the Arctica. The case back here, you've got, there's your seal, which is a fairly thin one on here. This is only 3 ATM. This is more of a dress watch. Now you compare the gasket on this one to the Kommandersky, which is higher water resistance. See, that's actually one of the basic Vostoks are actually very water resistant for such an inexpensive watch. You see the bigger, thicker gasket. Of course, that plays into it being of a higher water resistancy. And then here's the case on the Kommandersky. Get to see that exposed here. So I ripped these apart just so we could have, you know, a basic look at the component pieces and get a feel for the movements. So again, the 2432 has the day-night indicator. It has a 24-hour GMT secondary dial and the date, the optimization to give it a better timekeeping, and the decoration, as opposed to, again, the basic 2416. Both built by Vostok, one used in the basic Vostok and one used in Vostok Europe. So that really covers the basics of these movements and some of the parts. Here we go. I'll show you what the crown looks like outside the watch. This is from the Kommandersky, and this one, I'll see if I can show it, is from the Arctica. So that gives you a basic overview of these pieces and parts. If anybody has additional questions or things I haven't covered, I haven't spent a lot of time discussing these kinds of technical details on the watches. So if I missed anything or you've got additional questions, please email us at info@russiatoall.com or give us a call at 877-486-7865, extension 702. And I'd love to talk with you about it and hear questions and provide more information. Thanks a lot and have a great one. Keep watching.